Thanks for joining me. My name's Dave Miller. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy. I want to start out the show with a few thanks to a few good people like Deanne or Diane. It's D-I-A-N, D-I-A-N 5 on the Twitter for very kind words about the last show. I also want to thank Jonathan Miller, that's J-O-N-F-U-N on the Twitter, for featuring the show in The Firestorm, which is a digest of tweets. It's something that you guys should all take a look at. It's a lot of good things in one place, and he's done this a few times, and I just want to extend my thanks to Jonathan for including my program in his digest. And also want to thank Bing, that's Trad Americans on the Twitter, for featuring the show in his digest, Trad Am Daily Digest. There you've got two sources for a lot of good tweets, a lot of good links, a lot of good stuff. Check them out. Now I want to give special thanks to Dottie O, that's Virgo Woman 64 on the Twitter, for the following tweet that she sent to me. My father was a newsman, editor, sports editor, and pressman, World War II vet, and great dad. Would have loved your perspective. Thanks. And no, Dottie, thank you, because it is wonderful compliments like that that keep me wanting to deliver quality to the people who are kind enough to listen to me, and I am very proud to have you listening and spending your time doing that. Now, let's get into the show. I'm going to give you a story, and it's going to sound very familiar at first, and then I'm going to put a twist on it, because that's what I do. All right, now, this is written by Ben Rohrbach of Yahoo News Prep Rally. Okay, and this was put out on January the 9th. And the headline is, State Championship Football Coach Claims to be Fired for Running Up the Score. A Virginia high school released a statement on Wednesday claiming the leader of the state championship football team resigned to focus more time on his family. But the coach is claiming administrators didn't renew his contract for running up the score. The bizarre tale of Virginia Beach, Virginia Bishop Sullivan Catholic High School coach Carl Turner's departure is chronicled in the Virginia Pilot. And the only certainty at this point is that the man who led the Crusaders to a Virginia Independent Schools Athletic Association Division II state championship this past fall is out of a job. All right, now I'm going to post this story on UBG Contact on the Twitter, where I post everything that pertains to the show, and it is a familiar story to us. We are reminded of the father who complained about the Aledo High School in Texas supposedly running up the score on his son's team and how unfair that was. Now, the reason I'm not continuing with this story, and I'm going to post it, is because it led me down a certain train of thought and to an interesting conclusion. Now, we can discuss the fact that this was a private school, and they do have the right to hire and fire who they wish for the reasons they wish. But it goes deeper than that. This is not a public school. It is a Catholic school. Now, one would assume that a Catholic school would have somewhat more realistic standards of winners and losers than is currently being promulgated in public schools at this point. If anything, this demonstrates rather disturbingly that the universal fairness doctrine that seems to be running through our public schools has now begun to leak into our private schools. And that thought led me to another thought and a realization. People have been asking, why is it that there seems to be an increasing number of school shootings? And, of course, statists love to blame the availability of evil firearms. Well, my realization was that this is not only not the case, but that the statists themselves are at fault for this. Now, let me explain. If you look at the culture in which modern young people have been raised from the 1980s up to now, young children are basically raised in Nerf world. Everyone's kind, everyone's happy, Everyone feels good, everyone's the same, everyone wins, no one loses. And this goes on from early age through preschool and elementary school. And aside from the occasional bully, kids are routinely insulated from the realities of the world. Now, you can all relate to this. What happens after the warm and folding blanket of elementary school and early life are ripped off when the child is put in middle school? Suddenly, everything is judged as far as this kid is concerned. His peers are judging him on his looks, his sports performance, just anything that you can think of. Now, this is, in a way, right and proper because these children are beginning to become adults. And this is where statism runs up against the one thing that always topples it, human nature. It is human nature for young men to want to prove themselves as good mates for young women. And that feeds into the hyper-judgmentalism that goes on in the middle and high school environments. And I contend that this shock can last over several years, and some kids simply are unable to deal with the hyper-judgmentality after they have been raised in the Nerf world that modern statists have constructed around them since the 1980s. The availability of firearms has nothing to do with school shootings. You have a lot of kids out there who feel betrayed by a culture who told them in early life that everyone could achieve the same thing, that everyone gets a trophy, and that everyone's going to be nice all the time and that everyone is equal. And then they find out that none of that's really the case. There are winners, there are losers. And adults really don't help in this because all we can provide them is words and platitudes, which don't help when you're in what quite frankly becomes the snake pit of the school social arena. Therefore, some of these kids, not seeing a way out, lash out. And some of them do it in a most extreme way, which costs lives. Now, there may be some who disagree, but I see this as the propaganda running up against the reality, and the kid caught in the middle. And if the statists want to call these kids monsters, they're monsters that they themselves created. Now, I've identified the problem. So what's the solution? Well, the solution isn't to turn kindergarten into Thunderdome, all right? We can go back to some of the older methods of teaching kids, showing them that, yes, there are winners and losers, but that different kids are good at different things. Now, when it comes down to how to handle bullies, I have a suggestion there, too. We can teach kids how to fight. And if it's like a disabled kid or something of that nature, then volunteers can come in and show them how to fight in alternative ways. We can also give kids alternative weapon training. The bullies are going to have a bigger problem making some kids' life hell to the point where at some point they grab a gun and start shooting if that kid knows how to jam a protractor somewhere where that bully wouldn't like. We can give our kids training in how the real world works without being cruel. And I think we need to start. All right. Now, instead of an awesome American this time, I'm going to tell you guys a story that I heard over the weekend from a longtime listener, Teresa Sickles. That's T-Sickles321 on the Twitter. And I think you'll know why I told you the story once I'm done. Now, she told me, the vet had to put my 18-year-old cat to sleep Friday, January the 17th, because he was sick. I called my spouse at work to tell him the options and what the vet recommended. He left work early and got home before me. He got home right about the time we were putting the cat to sleep. My husband said when he got out of the truck, there was a cat sitting in our yard that started meowing at him. This never happened before, that being the cat in the yard. Now, we all know that cats do mark their territory, and we know that other cats can sense that. That's why cats mark their territory in the first place. So, this could be dismissed as happenstance. But is it? If it never happened before that this couple noticed, could it just be coincidence? Or could it be that Teresa is right when she says, I kind of wonder if other Kitty was saying goodbye for our little guy since my husband Tim wasn't at the vet with us? Coincidence? Happenstance? You tell me. All I know is that there is a lot more to this wonderful universe that God created for us than we sometimes all too arrogant human beings are willing to admit. And I know one other thing. Love transcends. I appreciate every one of you who listen, and that's it for the show. Thank you, and may your God go with you. Goodbye.